Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Suzana Rusdi and today I will present you our study entitled Pandemic Shock, Labor Dynamic and Inflation Pattern in Malaysia, Empirical Evidence and Policy Insight 2019 until 2034. This study examined how the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted Malaysia's labor market, influenced inflation and what policy measures can strengthen macroeconomic resilience. To begin with, COVID-19 created one of the largest economic disruptions in Malaysia's history. Business closure, movement restriction, and declining consumer demand resulted in significant employment losses while simultaneously changing inflation pattern. Our study adopted a secondary data approach using official statistics from sources such as Department of Statistics Malaysia, Bank Negara Malaysia, Ministry of Finance, and World Bank. The analysis focuses on the period 2019 until 2034, allowing us to compare conditions before, during, and the pandemic. The pandemic created two major macroeconomic shocks. The first was labor market disruption. Many firms reduced operation, causing higher unemployment, reducing working hours, and slower wage growth. The second shock involved inflation dynamics. Initially, in Malaysia experienced relatively low inflation due to weak demand. However, during the recovery phase, inflation increased because of supply chain disruption, higher commodity prices, and stronger consumer spending. These two shocks demonstrate how employment and prices are closely interconnected within the economy. Our research focuses on three main objectives. First, to examine how pandemic shock affected employment and labor market performance. Second, to analyze inflation trends throughout the recovery period. And finally, to evaluate policy intervention that can improve macroeconomic resilience and support sustainable economic recovery. Analysis is guided by the modified Philip curve. Traditionally, the Philip curve explained the relationship between unemployment and inflation. However, during the pandemic, this relationship became more complex because external shocks influenced both variables simultaneously. Supply disruption, government intervention, and changing consumer behavior alter the normal inflation-unemployment relationship. Therefore, the modified framework better estimates post-pandemic economic. This table summarize- this table summarizes several important labor market indicators. The unemployment rate increased sharply during the pandemic before gradually declining as economic activity recovered. Labor force participation also improved over time as businesses reopened. However, recovery was uneven across industry. Sectors such as tourism, hospitality, and retail experienced much slower employment recovery compared to sectors like technology and digital services. This indicates that economic recovery did not benefit every sector equally. One important finding is the labor force recovery rate of approximately 4.5%. Although employment conditions improved after the pandemic, several structural challenges remain. These include skills mismatch, underemployment, wage stagnation, and differences in recovery across industry. This suggests that employment growth alone is insufficient without improvement in job quality and productivity. This chart illustrates Malaysian inflation trend. In 2020, inflation declined because economic activity slowed significantly. As the economy reopened, inflation rose during 2021 and peaked around 2022 due to higher global energy prices, supply chain disruption, and stronger domestic demand. By 2023 and 2024, inflation gradually moderated as supply conditions improved and monetary policies became more effective. This demonstrates that inflation was driven largely by external shocks rather than Another important aspect is minimum wage policy. Increasing minimum wages help improve workers' purchasing power and living standards. However, businesses may respond by increasing production costs, which can contribute to wage push inflation. Therefore, wage policy should be carefully balanced with productivity improvement to ensure sustainable economic growth without creating excessive inflationary pressure. Based on our findings, we recommend several policy measures. First, strengthen labor market resilience through skill development and workforce reskilling. Second, improve social protection system to better support vulnerable workers during future economic shocks. Third, implement targeted fiscal and monetary policy that stabilize inflation while encouraging sustainable employment growth. And finally, greater coordination between government agencies is essential to improve Malaysia's preparedness for our future crises. In conclusion, our study demonstrates that the pandemic significantly affected both Malaysia's labor market and inflation dynamics. Although recovery has been encouraging, several structural vulnerabilities remain. Future policies should therefore focus not only on economic growth but also on creating resilient labor markets, stable prices, and inclusive development. So, thank you for your attention. That's all.